Shana Tova. My name is Rabbi Brett Weisman, and I just have to acknowledge how humbled and full of joy I am to be in front of you this evening. This is truly a dream come true in more ways than you will ever know. Thank you. When my wife and I were living in Jerusalem for my first year in rabbinical school, we struggled to get an important doctor's appointment. And after a few attempts, we decided that we would march down to the doctor's office, bent on getting the appointment we needed, as we thought an Israeli might do. Only to find out that we were in the wrong building, lost, and unable to figure out how to use the voice-activated elevator. Suddenly, the doors of the elevator opened, and there was Barbara. She was wearing a red pantsuit, matching red glasses that covered most of her face, and her hair was sitting perfectly on top of her head. She took one look at us, and in the thickest New Jersey accent, she said, "You're lost. Where do you need to go?" My wife and I looked at each other with shock and explained the situation to Barbara. With no hesitation, she took us right to the doctor's office, bypassing any appointment, and procured the prescription we needed. Barbara gave us her card, told us to call if we ever needed anything, and left us. Dayenu. This would have been enough for us. My wife and I could not believe our fortune. We felt such a deep sense of gratitude and amazement at the odds of running into the executive director of Hadassah Hospital. The next day, while eating a salad in the middle of Jerusalem, 15 minutes from Hadassah Hospital, we saw Barbara. She laughed and said, "You never called. I thought everything was fine." Dayenu. This would have been enough for us. From then on, Barbara Goldstein took us to lunch almost every Friday and invited us to her home for Shabbat at least a dozen times. Dayenu. Affectionately known as BG by what felt like the entire state of Israel, dozens of people would come to say hello every time we ate lunch with her. In fact, in 2011, Barbara was invited to be one of 12 people to light the torches at Israel's Independence Day celebration for her contributions to Hadassah and the betterment of Israel. Barbara taught us what Zionism truly is. Kol Yisrael Aravim Zeh Bazeh, that all of Israel is responsible for one another. For Barbara, Israel is not just a place, it is an opportunity. On more than one occasion, Barbara said, "Who are we that we should be so lucky to enjoy the modern state of Israel in our lifetime? 2,000 years we waited," she said, "and not even Moshe Rabbeinu was allowed to enter." For Barbara and me, Israel represents the opportunity to be Jewish. I have such a deep emotional, spiritual, and intellectual relationship with Israel. And with this kind of depth and complexity comes even more complexity. Perhaps the most accessible way to understand my relationship and perspective of Israel is in terms of family. Like any family, I have members who I love and family members who I love but frustrate me. And for me, family is full of history and stories and delicious food. I love Israel. I have family and friends there, and I feel at home when I walk those streets. There is something deeply spiritual about seeing so many Jews living Jewishly in a Jewish state, the fulfillment of Judaism's hope of 2 millennia. Today, this evening, I will share with you 3 anecdotes that highlight the way in which I believe we might discuss this miraculous yet challenging place. Israel is complicated, and I hope with the utmost sincerity that this sermon serves as a touchstone for how we might deepen our discussion of Israel as a congregation, for the good, the bad, and the possibilities. As Jews, we are quite fortunate in the United States. While anti-Semitism is certainly at alarming levels, we enjoy freedoms that so many Jews for so much of history have not had the opportunity to enjoy. This makes the need for a Jewish state potentially odd for our American sensibilities. But take it from Natan Sharansky, former Israeli Knesset member and instrumental refusenik who fought for the rights of Jews in Soviet Russia. At the outset of the Ukrainian conflict with Russia, Sharansky wrote, quote, "When I was growing up in Ukraine, in Donetsk, there were many nations and nationalities. There were those with identity papers that read Russian, Ukrainian, Georgian, or Cossack, and this was not so important, since there was not much difference between them. The single designation that stood out was Jew. If that was written with your identity, it was as if you had a disease. We knew nothing about Judaism," Sharansky continued. "There was nothing significant about our Jewish identity other than the anti-Semitism, hatred, and discriminatory treatment we experienced because of it. This week," Sharansky said, referring to the beginning of the conflict between Russia and Ukraine, Sharansky was reminded of his childhood days while he watched thousands of people standing at the borders of Ukraine trying to escape. He said, "They are standing there day and night, and there is only one word that can get them out: Jew." He continued, "If you are a Jew, there are Jews outside who care about you and are waiting for you. There is someone on the other side of the border who is searching for you. Your chances of leaving are excellent. The world has changed. When I was a child," Sharansky said, "Jew was an unfortunate designation. No one envied us. But today, on the Ukrainian border, identifying as a Jew is a most fortunate circumstance. It describes those who have a place to go, where their family and entire nation is waiting for them on the other side. That place to go, that nation, that family is Israel. How fortunate are we and Jews living around the world that we have a place to call home when hatred and violence against Jews permeates the zeitgeist." While Barbara and Sharansky represent the community and responsibility that Israelis and Jews have for one another, this second story is intended to highlight one window into the Palestinian experience and the relationship between Israel and its Palestinian neighbors. One day, while living in Jerusalem, a friend I had made outside of my rabbinic program invited me to join him at his nonprofit in Bethlehem. So we got on a Palestinian bus and went through the checkpoint and alighted the bus in downtown Bethlehem. At the bus stop, there was a line of about 20 taxis eager to take me to the border wall. I obliged and took a cab to see the Banksy art and powerful works of graffiti spray-painted on the side of the wall dividing Israel from Palestine. I ate lunch in a Palestinian cafe, visited several churches central to the Christian story, and at one point, I lost my wallet. While I was desperately trying to find it, a Palestinian man ran up to me with my wallet fully intact. Apparently, he had been looking all over for me. He even closed his shop to find me. Shaken and astonished, I expressed my sincere gratitude. I purchased from him the briefcase that I now use each and every day and made my way back to the bus station. Only this time, when crossing back into Israel, anyone without an American passport had to get off the bus and were subjected to strip searches. It was a painful thing to watch, and I can only imagine what it must have felt like to have been subjected to such a humiliating moment. Sadly, I understand the need for these searches, but I could not help but wonder, why didn't they search me too? Hebrew Union College, the rabbinical school of each of Temple to Hirsch Sinai's clergy, was instrumental in presenting the conflict in a deep and nuanced and meaningful way. From what I gathered during my year in Israel, The common through line from all of the Palestinian voices that I had the opportunity to hear was the desire to have their story told, for us to hear their story. Which brings me to my final anecdote. When I was a junior in college, I attended many events at the Hillel on campus. At one particular event, a former Israeli soldier, no more than 25 years old, came to speak with us about his experience in the army. 2 Palestinian students had decided to protest the event. They brought whistles, they screamed, they clapped, they did everything they could to drown the voice of this soldier. I told my friend Menachem, I looked at my friend Menachem, and he said one of the most profound things I have ever heard. He said, "This is what happens when we don't listen." He took responsibility for these students' anger and sadness. This is what happens when we don't listen. People get sad, angry, and begin to lash out. The event was canceled early due to the protesting students, and most of the Jewish students were disappointed and angry. But Menachem and I decided to create an opportunity out of a disappointing situation. We decided that we would approach the Palestinian students to try and hear them. We invited them to go to coffee, to talk, maybe about Israel, maybe about literally anything else. So we did. We went to a coffee shop, found a booth, and talked about food, music, movies, and Israel didn't come up once, except at the very end of our conversation, when they thanked us for listening. In Israel, only 3 to 8% of Jewish Israelis speak Arabic. And of the Jews who do speak Arabic, they are likely to have immigrated from an Arabic-speaking country like Yemen or Iraq. While language is itself a barrier, it is clear that listening is a barrier too. There is a significant foundational problem, and communication seems to be at the very core of the issue. I tell these stories because I care deeply about the health and safety of the Jewish state. Because Israel has given me and so many other Jews the opportunity to express our Judaism in so many ways. And because we have to spend more time having meaningful and nuanced conversations about Israel. I have to talk about Israel because seeing Israeli Jews behaving in a way that conflicts with my own values forces me to wonder, in what ways is Israel living up to our burden, that we are meant to be a light unto the nations? In what ways are we, the Jewish people, living up to this standard? In what ways can we hold ourselves to even higher standards, the highest standards, godly standards? And that is what this day is all about. Perspective is everything. Nuance isn't easy. Listening isn't easy, but it is, in my opinion, a huge part of the solution. After having coffee with those 2 Palestinian students, it occurred to me that it is significantly more difficult to throw stones at someone with whom you have shared a cup of coffee. When we realize that a single perspective is an absurdly narrow lens through which to view the world, we might begin to realize that each and every person is living a life as vivid and unique as our own. When conflict is humanized, no matter if it is in Israel or here in the United States, when we realize the values we share with those whom we may vehemently disagree, we are far more aligned than we could ever imagine. Perhaps then we will begin to know the true meaning of the word peace. In Jerusalem, on a Yom Tov afternoon, on those special afternoons before a holiday like Rosh Hashanah, there is a feeling, an excitement that fills every street, alley, and doorway. The street vibrates with anticipation. The markets are full of people doing last-minute shopping, finalizing their plans for the holiday. And as the afternoon begins to fade into the evening, the bustle slows and slows, and it is as if the holy city of Jerusalem itself takes a deep sigh. It is a sigh of relief, a sigh of fulfillment, and a sigh of wholeness. When I think of these high holy days, especially in Jerusalem, I think of the truest sense of shalom, a complete, fulfilling rest. Peace in Hebrew, as we know, is shalom. Peace in Arabic is salam. Salam and shalom. These are the same words, from the same root meaning wholeness. Salam alaikum, peace be upon you. Shalom alechem, peace be upon you. On this Rosh Hashanah, may the peace we find in wholeness be upon each of us. Shana tova umituka, may this new year be filled with sweetness, health, happiness, and peace.